All right, bitches, we are back with a new video. This video is going to be all about should you cut or bulk? By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly which direction you should go and how to do it. I'm going to give you the heuristics and the processes and the approaches, the frameworks that I use when I make this assessment for clients, okay? When I am planning these out, the various phases for clients over years, several months, up to 1 to 2 years, I'm going through processes like this, among other things. But I want to keep this very, very simple and actionable for you so that, like I said, by the end of this video, you can be like, okay, I now understand what to look at and how to look at it. So now I know where to go. Most people, if you're anything like actually a new client that I just chatted with this morning that I'm going to be onboarding in a couple days, if you're anything like him, you might be in this place where you're spinning your wheels, you're doing a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of mental energy, a lot of bandwidth, and maybe even money, but definitely time as well, on various things to avoid getting fat. And you kind of want to cut, but you also kind of want to get jacked. And you're not really sure. Should I cut? Should I bulk? We're going to answer that in this video, okay? So we're going to go through it, and you're going to have some clarity on it. Same type of clarity that I just gave my new client that I'll be onboarding in a couple days, okay? I'm taking care of this for him, and I'm going to make this very, very simple for you as well. So let's go through it. Should you cut or bulk, okay? We're going to start with here. Basically, you got to start with assessing your current body composition, okay? This matters a lot. There's a lot of other things you get into here, but we're just going to start here. So if you are fat / soft, okay, so if you're carrying any extra fat tissue that isn't like six-pack lean, okay, you don't need to be single-digit body fat percentage. But if we're going to put a number on it, I would say 15% plus, maybe 14 to 15% plus. If you are, okay, plus you're also under-muscled. You need to be more jacked. You're obviously skinny. Typically, this would be a taller person, okay? Or if you're shorter or average height, you're just very lightweight. This would be like a skinny fat type of build, right? If this is you, you can see already it's highlighted. You're going to cut. No questions asked. This is a very clear next step. You're going to cut, okay? Let's move to the next one. If you're fat and soft, same type of thing, 14 to 15% or more. I realize that that's not fat. I'm just saying like 14 to 15% on the lowest, all the way up to obese, right? That's what I'm saying here, okay? That's like our cutoff, 14 to 15%. So if you're 14 to 15% or more, okay? That's why I say soft, because it's like you could just be skinny fat. You're not really that fat. You're just kind of chubby, no definition, okay? But you're also well muscled. So you're like, okay, I'm jacked, right? So this isn't a skinny fat guy. This is a dude who looks pretty good in a t-shirt. Like, oh, dude, you look strong. You look like you could throw some shit around. You know what I mean? Don't mess with this guy. He might get gassed, probably has shitty cardio, but he's strong as shit. If that's you, you're gonna cut. You're gonna cut. Okay. You can see the trend here. It's like if you're fat and soft, doesn't really matter. If you're under muscled, well muscled, just get freaking lean. Okay, that's the idea there. Now, next, you're lean, so you're not fat and soft. You're like, dude, I'm smaller, dude. I've always had a six pack my whole life, or close. What do I do? Well, if you're under muscled, okay, you're gonna bulk. Okay, because you're already lean, so you don't really need to cut. There's not like a big directional incentive there to get leaner. Now, I just say lean, so it's like, well, how lean? I mean under the cutoff that we did for here, which I guess I could add to this, right? So let's say 14, 15% plus, right? So this would be, what's the sign for this? Under 14, 15%. Okay, so if you're under 14, 15%, but you're not jacked and you need more muscle, you're going to go into a bulk. Last one. You're lean, so same thing. You're under 14 to 15%, but you're jacked. This is great. This is where we're all trying to get to, right? This is the physique, man. You can literally do whatever the frick you want, dude. You could cut, you could bulk, you could go whatever direction. So when I have a client in a position like this, where we've built their physique into something where they're like, I love this. This is great. Let's keep going. Whatever that looks like, and that's what we figure out. What does that look like, right? And I help them paint that vision. So in your case, this is why I say like you could. This one's probably the least helpful, I know, but it's the truth, right? If you're lean and well muscled, you probably need a coach to help kind of decide like, okay, what do the next 6 to 12 months look like based on the vision for your physique, your fitness, and your health, right? And then you can decide, well, whether the next phase is going to be a cut or a bulk. Because keep in mind, this is really just the next like 8 to 12 weeks, maybe 8 to 16 weeks. That's all this is. It's what's the next step? That's the question we're answering here. What is the next step? Next step here is a cut. Next step here is a cut. Next step here is a bulk. Next step here could be either one, right? So we're just keep in mind that's what this is. It's not like saying like you're going into a cut, so that's what your next year looks like. It's like, no, this is just the next phase. Okay, so that should answer your question there. Now, what we want to look at now is previous phases. This matters a lot, and you want to put this in conjunction with current body composition as well. My new client that I just chatted with this morning, he's coming off a fat loss phase, so he's already lost a bunch of fat, but he's kind of been hanging out in this phase of just chilling. So he went from fat to fit, very similar to myself if you've seen some of my other videos. But he doesn't know how to get from fit to a six-pack. He doesn't know how to get from fit to abs, right? So he's going from like good to great. A lot of guys get stuck there. They lose a bunch of fat, really, really good at losing weight. Excellent, super impressive. Did it on their own, don't need help, awesome. But they need help with the next step. They don't know how to get from fit to six-pack, right? So this is why this is key, is knowing like, what are you coming off of here? You coming off the couch fresh, or are you training like crazy and you're trying to just literally just maintain this new physique that you got, but you're not really where you want to be yet, right? This matters. So you really got two scenarios here primarily. We're oversimplified, but I want to make it as simple as possible. Simple makes it easy to execute. So 12 plus week cut. I say 12 plus weeks. That is my default go-to for a duration of any phase. Okay, 12 weeks is awesome. It's long enough to see meaningful changes, but it's also short enough that you don't feel like you're doing it forever, regardless of what the phase is. Okay, so that's why I say 12 weeks. Under that, it's pretty short. Over that, you could. That's why I say 12 plus, because you totally could do any of these things longer. Okay, so 12 plus week cut. You're coming off at least 12 weeks in a calorie deficit, but you're under muscled. You need to get more jacked. Very similar to my client. He is over 6 feet. And he's around 160 something pounds. So he's under muscled. He needs to get more jacked. He's leaner now. He's lost a bunch of fat. Great. But he needs more muscle. So he's in this scenario. Okay. So let's look at this. Bulk. Okay. This is a scenario where you're actually lean. Now, here's what I'll add. Okay. This is a little bit of a caveat. So 12-week cut, bulk, here's what I would say. Bulk if under 14-15%. Cut if over 14-15%. Okay, that's what I would add. So I actually haven't decided what I'm going to do for this new client yet. He just sent in his intake, so I'll be reviewing that and then building out a roadmap for him over the next basically 24 to 48 weeks. And for him, we are probably going to start with a cut, but I need to see his physique first. That being said, if he is under 14 to 15%, I'm going to put him into a bulk to start. So this is kind of let me add this here. Let's bold that bitch, okay? So this is your heuristic here. 12 weeks or more in a deficit, plus you need to be more jacked. You should bulk if you are under 14 to 15%, so you're pretty lean. Like, great job. That's impressive. You need to keep cutting if you are still over 14 to 15%, okay? That's your heuristic there. Second one, if you're in a calorie deficit for 12 or more weeks, so you're going to cut for that long or more, which a lot of people are. Usually they're in and out of a deficit way too long. So for most people, this is probably true, but you're jacked, okay? If you're jacked, you could go either way here. Same idea. Now, I didn't give a heuristic for this one, really, a process, but you could kind of follow the same thing, right? Yeah, that's what I would say. If you're jacked, you don't really need to rush into a bulk at all because you're naturally a heavier person. You probably naturally put on fat and muscle easier. I'm saying probably. So you're likely in this scenario probably going to want to go into a cut. Like you're just basically going to extend this cut for maybe another 4 weeks. That being said, you could take a maintenance phase, which, you can call that a bulk if you want, but I call it like a mini diet break, right? 4 to 8 weeks, come up to maintenance calories, and then go back into the cut, right? I got other videos on how to kind of like plan these out. Now, I should probably do a part 2 on this to actually show like, okay, take a case study, assess which one they are here, and then I can actually build out the phases and show you how I would do that, and you could just copy it for yourself. So let's go into some considerations here, okay? So first one, you should be outside of a fat loss phase longer than you are inside one. Why? Because when you're in a calorie deficit, there is a cost. You can't just lose weight and not accumulate costs, okay? The costs associated with that are lower thyroid, lower metabolic rate in general, typically losing a little bit of non-zero amount of muscle to some extent. That happens more so depending on nutrition, consistency around nutrition, lifestyle factors, sleep, as well as training, right? And duration in the cut, right? So these are things that variables that I'm considering when I'm building someone's plan so that we can minimize how much muscle we lose. Typically, we're trying to lose damn near close to none, right? So there are a lot of things associated with that. So, and the longer you're in a calorie deficit, in a fat loss phase, the more serious and the more likely you are to expose yourself to these costs. So that's why we want to spend more time outside the fat loss phase than inside it, okay? So when we're planning these out, that's something to consider. So that's why, like, if someone's in a long cut, that's why sometimes we do want to err on the side of, like, let's go into a bulk for a bit. It might not be 12, 16 weeks. Maybe it's 8, but I want to take a break, right? This is crucial. I call this, like, coming up for air. If we're going into the calorie deficit and it is inherently stressful, I look at that like we're diving underwater. Well, you got to come up for air at some point. You just can't hang out there forever. But you should go down, be very, very focused, have your tank full of air, know what you're going down for, have a clear objective, come back up on schedule, come up for air, hang out in the boat, crack a beer. This analogy is getting out of control. And then you can dive back down again, right? If you need to, if you still need to get leaner, okay? So that's the idea. But when you're planning out a phase, or you're planning out your phases, say over a year, over that year, you should look at all of your weeks and look at it, and you should be outside of a fat loss phase more than you're inside, okay? So typically for my clients, you'll see no more than 24 weeks out of a year. So 24 out of 52 weeks. Just under half is the most I would have them dieting for that reason, okay? A lot of people make that mistake. So you want to, when you're setting up a fat loss phase, you want to make it specific, aggressive, and very, very simple. And you want to execute aggressively so you can get in, get the job done, and get the heck out of there, okay? If you're skinny, tall, or under-muscled, you need to bulk most of the time. So this kind of falls in line with the first one here anyway. You're going to spend most of your time building muscle. Now, I should have mentioned this too. This isn't really a consideration, but you could add this in. When I'm saying a bulk, because there's weird connotations with the bulk, right? I don't put my clients through cuts and bulks. Technically, I do. It's more semantics. But I have my specific way of doing it. What I call it is we have fat loss phases and we have non-fat loss phases. That's it. 2 different things. But a fat loss phase typically always looks the same. A non-fat loss phase could be anything, okay? It could be an aggressive bulk. It could be a lean bulk. It could be a general physique development phase or a performance development phase, whatever. There's so many different things that you could choose as a goal outside of fat loss. So when we're not losing fat, we're just focused on literally anything else, okay? That being said, I will put them into 2 baskets, right? We have a fat loss phase and a non-fat loss phase. Typically a non-fat loss phase for a client who wants to improve their body composition and their physique. I call it a physique development phase. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to develop the physique now. We want food to be increased so that we can fuel our workouts, upregulate our metabolism, build lean muscle, and stay lean. That's what we're trying to do here, right? So when I say bulk, that's what I'm talking about. You want to spend time not dieting. That's what that means. I am not saying you should be eating like an asshole and get fat. No. There's no room for that at all. You just need to spend most of your time not freaking dieting or not in a calorie deficit. If you're skinny, tall, and under-muscled, you've spent almost your whole life in a calorie deficit. You need to not do that. So you need to really shift the scales to get, pun unintended, you need to spend most of your time there not dieting, okay? So that is crucial. And that's the case for most people, but definitely if you're skinny, tall, or under-muscled. Okay, third one. All you need is 24 weeks out of the year to lose 40 plus pounds. So I already said like 24 weeks out of the year max is what I typically will allow for a client to spend in a calorie deficit, okay? That's the most. I would like less, but 24 weeks is fine depending on what their goal is, especially longer term goals. If you have 40 plus pounds to lose, you're probably going to want to set up your year to be like this, 24 weeks, and then the remaining, whatever that is, 28 weeks is going to be spent in a physique development phase. High food, lots and lots of food, high quality food, and focusing on everything that isn't fat loss, building lean muscle, learning how to enjoy social events, travel, various other things while still supporting your fitness goals, and just staying consistent long-term so you can slowly gain weight, slowly gain lean tissue without gaining fat, keeping midsection tight, okay? Hitting PRs in your training constantly that entire time, okay? That's why you need to plan it out, because otherwise you get stuck in this situation. Like open-ended fat loss phases are the worst, but you can end up stuck in the situation where you just you're dieting on and off for 9 months out of the year, 10 months out of the year. Horrible. I see it happen way too much, so don't do that. Here's the next one. In most cases, you are too fat. Most people are too fat. So if you're watching this, you're probably too fat. You might not be. You might be a skinny, tall, under-muscled dude. But most people are too fat. So that means you should have cut yesterday. So you need to just go into a cut. Probably, here's what you can do without me knowing any of the context about you, but you're still a little bit chubby, fat, or soft. You're definitely not super lean. What you need to do, 12 weeks, set up your protocol same way I would with a client. You're going to leverage your steps, nutrition using my MacroIntuitive Protocol, and your workouts, okay? Very, very simple. Watch some of my other videos before on that. If you have any questions, you can always DM me. I'm happy to give you some guidance on that, okay? But you need to start your cut, set it up, 12 weeks, start a date from today or whatever. It doesn't matter, a couple days from now, but you should have started yesterday, okay? 12 weeks, schedule it out. Be very clear on what you're trying to do and roughly how much weight you should lose per week as well. And then stay in the deficit for 12 weeks. And then when you're done the 12 weeks, get the heck out of there. Go into either a diet break if you have more weight to lose or a full-blown 12-plus week physique development cycle. Eat plenty of food. Now focus on building lean tissue without getting fat. That's what you got to do, okay? It's probably going to be the case for most of you, to be honest. Generally, you want to start from the foundation. What I mean by that is you want to gut the house, okay? If you buy a house that you like part of it, you don't like some of it, you're like, okay, I got a vision for how I want this thing to look, kind of like how you look at your physique, especially if you're like, I want this to look a lot different. What you want to do is, if money was no issue with the house, this is just a thought experiment, you would just like completely gut it and be like, all right, take it down to the bare bones, maybe right down to the foundation, and then build it back up, right? So that's what you want to do with your physique too, because so many of these guys are like, should I cut? Should I bulk? Should I whatever? And it's like, how lean are you? If you're not 12-ish% or lower, get down there. Get as lean as you can. Even if you're under-muscled, you could make that argument as well. Just get down there. I'm probably going to be doing that with this client that I was talking about. Even though he is under-muscled, we're probably going to put him into a cut just to see what we're working with. Let's get down actually to six-pack levels of body fat percentage, right? Six-pack levels of leanness. So it'll be around 11 to 12% for him. It'll be challenging. It'll be the leanest he's ever been. It'll be the most mentally challenging, but it'll be the most rewarding as well. And we'll be able to both look at his physique and be like, great, here is our starting point to build up from here. And then we can build out a 12 to 24 week physique development cycle where we can gradually build lean tissue while keeping his midsection tight. And we could even schedule maybe a mini 4 to 8 week mini cut in the middle of that if we need to, just to tighten up. Right. So, but that's generally what you want to do is like in most cases, you can be like, if you got fat to lose, you probably should, and you should do it aggressively so that you can do it in less time and get the heck out of there and then spend more time in the physique development phase where you should be. Okay. Without actually doing a sloppy ass bulk, which is what way too many people do. Okay. So that's how to figure out whether you should cut or bulk. If you have any questions on this, let me know. Leave them in the comments below and I'll answer, or you can DM me on Instagram at I am Tim Walcott, and I'll be happy to help you.